Is all this government stake business really a new thing, or just business as usual for our government? Welcome to the Between the Lies podcast, your weekly lesson on how to approach an uncertain world with positivity and balance. I'm Nikki P here with my good friends and money brains, Luke Tatum and Rob Brayton from Perfect Spiral Capital. Stick around to the end of the video for their free toolkit and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing. Gentlemen, are you ready to see how deep this government ownership rabbit hole goes?
I love it, channeling Morpheus there a bit. Excellent, excellent. It really is. It is a really interesting thing to see the world from new angles, and to realize that maybe everything the government does is not for our best interest and whatnot. But with this, I think there's a lot of confusion because public discourse seems to be that this is a brand new, unique thing. Of course, we've done an episode about the 10% stake that Trump moved to take of Intel. And, it is new, but it's also not new in a lot of ways. So I thought that might be an interesting thing to get into today. Rob, you were just looking up some stuff about TARP and all these previous issues that we've had or situations we've been in, 2008, all that. I mean, what is your high level overview there, if you would?
Yeah. So back in '08, if anybody recalls, those of our viewers who are old enough to remember, the U.S. had taken some pretty significant ownership stakes in a few companies because they were deemed, quote unquote, too big to fail. But it was to try and prop up the economy from a
We
lot of
got to
companies.
save Wall Street to save Main Street.
Yes, that was one of the terms. Um, uh, you know, capitalism at its finest, right? Survival of the fittest. But anyway, yeah, it was a pretty interesting time, right? And $700 billion plus in taxpayer dollars used to prop up companies that were already going to fail because of the decisions they had made. But obviously, a way bigger topic than we're going to talk about here. But it wasn't the first time either that private ownership had happened. We had nationalization of the railway system way back when, in the early 1900s and so on. So this isn't a new phenomenon necessarily. From what we've been able to surmise at this point, though, it does look a little different when you have government types saying that it's the creation or the beginnings of a quote unquote sovereign wealth fund. So that part of it is a little interesting in that it seems that there's a little bit different approach this time around, perhaps. What that means, I don't know that we really have the insight to be able to say, but it is pretty interesting nonetheless to see how this ties into both historically with ownership, meaning that it isn't new, but this does appear that it's a little different angle that's being attempted this time.
So obviously, I was around during like the 2008 crisis. I was theoretically an adult. I graduated college, had a degree, and whatnot. But at the time, definitely had not yet been introduced into economics, and frankly, how important that is. So, can you give me a little bit more detail? I guess it's like the mechanism specifically of how TARP functioned. Like I know that it was like a mass. It was a mass bailout. We knew that they gave a bunch of money to companies, but like that's literally as deep as my knowledge really goes on what happened. Now, obviously, we all agree giving companies money and picking winners and losers is always a bad thing. So like the whole bailout Main, Wall Street to so you take care of Main Street has always been stupid. But like, how do they even manage to pull it off? I guess.
So, I mean, I remember there's a lot of back and forth to be able to approve that what was then known as the Economic Stabilization Act in October of '08. Um, I remember advocating, no, we should not do it, but that's a different story. But it was the initial plan was to buy toxic mortgage-backed securities from banks, but the as the crisis continued to deepen because they realized it was infiltrated into all aspects of the economy, um, they looked at, well, maybe we need to do direct capital injection to help stabilize it. One, to stabilize the banking system because they were worried that it was going to completely collapse. But then two was to help stabilize these particular companies. So there was the TARP. There was the TARP section for banks, which the 9 largest banks were involved with. From what I understand, they were encouraged to participate in it. But then there was also the ownership stakes that took place, and that was with number of different companies and across a few different industries. So you had the auto industry involved, you have some of the insurance industry involved with like AIG, and then obviously the banking system. And those ownership stakes were more or less taking dollars that, as we know in our circles, didn't exist, being created through this program, purchasing common stock and or preferred stock in a lot of cases, that to keep those companies afloat, to build them up, build them back to where they were, and then those companies would buy those shares back from the government with interest and sort of pay the government back. Well, in theory, it works fine, but if you actually go in and look at all the details, every one of those companies lost money in the process. So
right. I mean, stock buybacks is one of the hot topic like boogeymen of the financial world. Like, look at these greedy corporations doing stock buybacks and doing, all these shenanigans. Like, there's terms that get thrown around that 1% of people understand the definitions of, and it's like you're just supposed to know that that's bad. Okay, just fall in line, hate big corporations, whatever. And big corporations, like, there's a lot of nonsense going on. Okay, I'm not stepping out here to defend them, but it's almost as though the ones that are the closest to DC and they're the most involved in like the protected favorite industries, those are the ones that get the bailouts. Like, it's I believe what you said, Nick. It's government choosing winners and losers, right? So that is not a good thing.
Canon Effect.
That's right, the Canon Effect. That's right. I don't know. I never know how econ we want to get in here, But yeah, if you're doing further reading, Cantillon Effect. It's good reading. It's good.
Like, if all our listeners ever learn is the word Canon Effect, they will be far better educated than most Americans are about our economy.
It's our favorite topic. Okay, you just have to know.
I was just going to say, I would like to layer in, since we're talking about books and things like that. If you really want to understand what went on in 2008, I highly recommend, if you can find it, it's a difficult book to locate, but The Fruits of Graft by Wayne Jett is a phenomenal book that talks about the details of what occurred and how it occurred. And that will give you a pretty good insight as to what actually happens, just like what you were talking about, Luke, in the back doors of Wall Street as it pertains to the interworkings with Washington. Like, a lot of this stuff doesn't happen by chance. It's all done by design. And that's the scary part.
Like, interesting choice you have there. I would have went with Meltdown by Tom Woods, but we each have our particular books we like, I suppose.
It's on my reading list. I still haven't read it, but I have barely read any books this year, much to my dismay. I just haven't been on any road trips, and I'm always an audiobook guy. So, here we go. But so TARP, getting back to kind of the main thrust of what we're discussing here, TARP was until recently kind of the latest in this history, right? TARP coming in and taking shares of AIG, 92% of AIG at one point. Crazy amounts of ownership. Obviously, it's not new for the government to do that. You had a system in place that did that, many years ago at this point. But Trump is doing something a little different. The Trump admin is doing something a little different. I'll just list the companies. We're now at 5 companies that the Trump administration has decided to take a stake in. We've got Intel Corporation. We've got MP Materials, Lithium Americas Corporation, Trilogy Metals Incorporated, and U.S. Steel. And, I see some commonalities in there between those companies, kind of what this could be sort of hinting at. Some people are going to look at that and say that's a crazy conspiracy theory, and that's fine until I'm proven right in about 2 years. But, whatever. But even if you don't look at the common industry stuff there and just discussing this, it's a different strategy. They're trying to participate in the profitability of companies. Now, what is the government doing with that? The government can make money out of thin air. I mean, your guess is as good as mine as to what we're really doing, big picture. But it is a little different to buy and hold instead of buy, help them recapitalize their books, and then get back out of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly a plan. When you look at that, I don't know. I mean, maybe I see things differently or more similarly to you, Luke. But there is a plan when you are taking and investing $9 billion in a company. You don't just throw it out there. And granted, I know our government is really good at wasting a lot of money, but this does seem to be very strategic, so to speak. And the the wonder is, does this continue? And as it continues, at what proportion of a 10% stake do you own of the vast majority of some of these infrastructure-based companies? And at what level? I don't know. It's kind of interesting. And how is that actually going to play out for the you and me person, right? How does that play out at our level in our day-to-day life? Does it actually help us? Or is it a situation where we are just footing the bill for someone else to get rich, like it has been for a very long time?
Yeah. I mean, I see some really, really potentially negative things, on the horizon, especially looking medium to long term out in the horizon. Now, we don't have to play this game. We can kind of isolate ourselves. We can do different things. I recommend everybody move out of the city and get out in the country, all those kind of things, right? but, but, I'll just say, I think that this is indicative of a larger play into the AI sphere. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see companies like AMD or NVIDIA or guys like that join this list. But I think that the Trump admin kind of has demonstrated a willingness to bend and break some rules and just kind of assert itself into this space because we want to control the development of AI governance, those kind of things. Trump has taken positions about, relaxing rules around AI governance. And so where does that lead us? It leads us to a government with a massive stake in the profitability of AI-based companies that are focusing on AI, controlling the mining of the metals and those sorts of things to create semiconductors, to, develop these technologies. And government having AI, like as AI continues to get better, quote unquote better, that's worse. That is a bad thing when the government's got it. It's the ability to comb through personal profiles, personal data, know what you're doing, where you're going, who you're with, at breakneck speed, right? Like instantaneously. Social credit scores, those types of things. It's all enabled by more and more computing power, more and more control over those industries. And so again, like some people are going to hear that and go, Luke, you're crazy. But I don't think so. I think that's as plain as day to me.
I agree with you. I think I don't know these companies all that well. I'll be the first to admit that. I haven't really researched them. My question is, like, maybe it's worth digging in, and I'm not, maybe somebody will want to comment on this, but have any of these companies been sort of, I'm not going to say for Intel, but maybe some of these others, are they tied to any of the CIA black projects that have been involved, right? Like, those are things to question and consider in these situations. There's there's a ton of history on that stuff. You can go look it up. You can dig into it. But the other thought there is, this isn't anything new. It's not anything surprising. The black budget on AI has been huge for a lot of years with DARPA. They've been working with Google, or I should say Alphabet, and some of these other companies for a very long time, well beyond it becoming mainstream. So if they're investing at this level, it tells me that they've already discovered an idea or a way in which they want it to work, and they want to have direct control over sourcing of those materials, so they can't necessarily have it be cut off from them. That's where my mind goes in some of these situations, and it's kind of scary. It's sort of dystopian, but I mean, has it ever really gone any other way through history? If you really are a student of history, it's hard to say, right? It does seem that that's the way that it's headed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, you brought up pre-show about other countries, excuse me, you know, China, some of these other places where these rare earth metals and things could be sourced from. And so, you know, what kind of conflicts does that create? And how do we navigate those things? That's, remains to be seen.
Well, I guess the big thing your fears, I guess, about the AI thing are, I get them, and if you want to see like the worst example of kind of like the government, it's about Palantir, obviously, and it's from the movie The Circle that they put out during COVID. It's a wonderful Tom Hanks movie about Big Brother becoming big reality. Um, Obviously, it comes from the private sector. How much of it is funded from government, obviously, is always the thing. The thing is that, like, I'd still rather anything like that come from a private sector because we know the government and the DARPA is spending their money on this crap already, anyways, and they're going to take what they can, anyways. It's all coming down the pipe one way or the other, I guess. And I guess I'd kind of rather be able to see it out in the open and see how it develops naturally and kind of be able to guide it as opposed to just deal with the hidden element of it. The bigger problem though is that, like we were talking earlier, is the ramifications on a global level for things that we don't have a lot of here. The rare earth minerals. Now, part of that's been good because if you know anything about rare earth mining or rare earth mineral mining, it's incredibly destructive. Like anytime you see a picture of anything that looks like Mordor in Africa, that's probably a rare earth mineral mine. They're absolutely disgusting to the environment. They're also why we've been able to keep our hands so clean when it comes to like environmental issues. We can always blame it that it's happening in other countries for us, but what that does do is put us at a disadvantage of all the people that we do piss off globally when our military needs to have the very particular and hopefully good versions of the computers that we need and all the modern technology that we need, which all lives off of rare earth minerals, many of them the batteries and all that stuff like that, to have when you have to basically go beg people that hate you to sell you and give you the things that you need to take care of yourself. It's a dangerous situation. Now, the danger in that situation is, well, if you do not interfered with business and shipped all of our like manual labor jobs overseas, this probably would have shaken out naturally. But you didn't. You did ship all of our shit overseas and give away all of our jobs. So there's a part of me that's like, I understand the importance of bringing that stuff back here. But then I think we fall into the same issue that we do. Like, if you remember back when Obama's in office and we're bringing back or going through all the Green New Deal stuff. It's in the news now because I believe they just now finally closed what was the biggest solar energy plant in the world out in the deserts in California. It is now like it's also one of the most expensive government projects ever done, and we gave them just you might as well have written a blank check for how much money we gave them, and what did it end up amounting to? Nothing. This is a failed idea that our government felt like getting behind because it thought it was the future. You know, I guess this just reeks of that to me.
Well, and it always goes back to profit and loss and basic economics, right? The government pretends that economics doesn't exist and that the laws of reality don't exist. And well, we'll just subsidize whatever, wind, solar, until it's good. I mean, that's been the argument from a lot of green energy advocates for a long time, quote unquote green energy. It's like, well, it's getting more efficient. We've had a 50% increase in the efficiency of photovoltaic cells. It's like, okay, well, 50% more of horrible efficiency is still pretty bad. Like it's getting better, great. But it's not there yet, and it's not roll-outable in a big enough way.
Well, and you know where it's usually not getting better at? The companies where we dump the money. It tends to be those companies that you eventually buy the people because they have government backing that actually did create the forward progress. But once again, can't alone affect people that have the government's money to buy this stuff. Um, yeah, it's just frustrating. Obviously we are ideologically possessed in such a way that like it burns us to our core anytime we think of the government picking winners and losers, and more for no other reason than like the whole capitalism bad rap is based on these greedy, awful companies. When well, it's not usually greedy, awful companies. It's the malinvestment that's put into the economy by the government that causes the real issues.
Right. I mean, what are we subsidizing? Rob, I see you want to say something. I'm sorry to cut you off. But like, you have federal rebate programs, state rebate programs for solar panels on your roof and all these different things. Like, there's all these things. You see it. Everyone on this call, everyone watching this podcast, listening to this podcast has been approached by some kind of solar like sales, ads on your social media, ads on your, web browser, whatever, everywhere. It's everywhere. See if you qualify, put in your zip code, give us your home address, let us do a satellite analysis of your home and see how much money you could make on the solar panels.
In truth, as a consumer, you probably lost out on some like really good money and a good way to start transitioning your home towards things that you might want to do eventually. So it was just, you should have seen some of the programs that are like, we're talking like 5 figures that they're taking care of to install these things that in some places end up making you money because you end up backfeeding into the grid. Like, if I'd owned property, I absolutely would have taken it up.
But at what cost?
Oh, well, I mean, at the cost of stealing money from everybody else to pay for that stuff for me.
Exactly. So it's like, do we have to do that to make it viable? If so, should we be doing it? No. Right?
Well, it's the thing that I always yell at you about. You're a video game guy. And I know that you would choose to do this the same way I would, but the idea of video game systems, like, they demand that they bring the prices down on them when they release them to the public. So they put them in like the $500 range as best they can, so that like even the bottom level consumers can pay for them, which I think is stupid. I think that they should sell them for $10,000 a piece to the rich idiots that then subsidize all of us people at the bottom because, well, they've paid for the first run of them at $10,000 a piece. Well, now all of us down here, we're all paying $100. And if I remember correctly, that is the way video game systems used to work. Like when we were kids, like when you bought the first NES, that shit was crazy expensive. And then eventually it wasn't. It came down to where consumers could pay it. And the only thing you got by having it early was bragging rights that you had it early.
Well, we get it then. That all that's a whole episode, man. I mean, we do a lot there, or maybe 3 or 4 episodes.
I know, but it's just it's out of my head as we're just watching like how this stuff all functions. We have anything more we really need to cover on this particular thing, or if we kind of started beating the horse dead?
Well, I mean, I think we want to end with some positive notes, right? Like I outlined a dystopian hellscape, and then we just started talking about video games. So, like, my advice is not necessarily to just goof off and ignore the problem, right? But what can you be doing today to, look ahead, see where this might lead, and how can you be sort of insulating yourself from those things? Financially, There's a lot more common sense and a lot more basic principles that could be interjected into your life. Most people could be doing a lot better job with their money. And that starts with a healthy attitude around savings and not pretending to just outperform everybody and everything all the time, every single year in perpetuity, right? So you don't want to just chase rates of return. You want to have a healthy relationship with the money that you receive, and you want to steward and take care of that money for you and your family, right? And so that's what we do. That's what we talk about. Perfect Spiral Capital. If you got anything to add to that, Rob? I mean, I don't want to go into tons of details, but we're here to be educators, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about education. I think the biggest challenge that a lot of us have is we kind of think we know everything that we should about money. And one of the things that both you, myself, and others who've kind of come across this process and concept, we understand that we had a little bit of what we call the arrival syndrome and thinking we knew all there was to know about money. And that's a lot about what we do with our education is we help people see things from a different angle. And then once you see it, it's up to you to make the decision. It becomes your responsibility if you want to do something different and position yourself in a way that's going to allow you to grow and earn more on what you already are bringing into your system. So we help you do that in a very effective and efficient manner that allows your capital to continue to grow and then be put to use in the way that you want without any strings attached.
All very good. Well, all very good points, gentlemen. But like you're looking at this as though it's like a real negative episode. It feels like, and I'm kind of taking it the whole other way. The important takeaway for me in this episode is that you could be all doom and gloom about things don't seem to change and keep having the same problems over and over again. Or you can focus on the fact that, nothing much changes. We keep having the same problems over and over again. There's nothing new under the sun. And so navigating this stuff is just look to history, pay attention, learn from the mistakes of the past on our end. Clearly, the government will not learn from their mistakes. They will keep making them because they're incentivized to make them. But knowing that they're going to make those mistakes when they come up should be a great white post for us telling you in the future how we navigate this landscape moving past them, moving around them, I guess.
You bet. With the well capitalized will always profit, right? Even if the government is choosing winners and losers, like in the S&P and the Dow and things like that, in the stock market, let's say, and they may well be doing that. They're engaged in that kind of nonsense all the time. They're not picking winners and losers as far as like individual people, the common folk out there. That is our domain. If you know and learn and participate in the study of what has occurred, to your point, you're in a great spot. You can save and accumulate some capital, and you're ready to deploy that to take advantage of what is coming. I mean, millionaires are made overnight.
If you guys, if your people that listening to us want to dump a bunch of money into one of those stocks that just follows what Nancy Pelosi does, you'll probably make a bunch of money. But the key is you have to have the assets available to do that. And these gentlemen here, that's what they help you with. So, Luke, now give us that outro.
Perfect. This has been a really fun episode. I appreciate you guys every week. And thank you for watching, joining us on another episode of the Between the Lies podcast. If you watch this full episode, of course, you are concerned about the world of money. And if you finish the episode, then you're probably concerned also about the future of your own money. So we've got a free toolkit. It's going to give you a free copy of my book, 2 full courses that are video courses to help navigate all of this nonsense in the world. And that's all free. So head on over to perfectspiralcapital.com/podcast. Grab your free toolkit today. We'll see you on the other side. Thanks so much for watching.